Good morning guys, today we are going to be doing a tutorial on how to fur your art doll faces. So if you want to have a creature that has fur all over the face and not just the body, I'm going to be showing you guys how to add that to the clay pieces and just covering everything up and making it look a little bit more realistic. Main reason I want to do this is in my tutorials I tend to not have a lot of time to show absolutely everything, and I know that this is one of those steps that I just kind of go by really quickly, so I figured I'd slow everything down and show you how I do it. Okay, so I'm not right now ready to do the furring of the face, mainly because I wanted to show you real quick what the face looked like before I paint it, because sometimes it can be hard to see the face in all its details, especially once you painted it black. So I just wanted to show you what I'm working with, and then I'm going to move on to getting this painted and put together, and basically to the point where we can start furring it. So there's going to be a big jump between here and when we actually start the project. Okay, so I got our wolf all put together, and now we're going to start furring its face. So what you'll need for this is obviously your art doll that is ready to be furred, a little bit of fur that matches the fabric that you ended up using for the body of the creature, some Fabri-Tac, this will help adhere everything to the face, a fur trimmer, this will help us make the actual fur trimmings to put on the face, and then paper, pen or pencil, and scissors. We're going to use this first because what I like doing is I don't want to take forever furring the entire face by just using fur trimmings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out different spots, like say the forehead, and we're going to figure out the size of that by sketching it out, and then we're going to cut pieces of fur fabric to fit in here. That way the more larger portions of the face we can just glue fur fabric over and it won't take forever to get done. My large piece of paper is a little daunting to use, it's just a little bit too big, so I'm going to cut a small piece. And we're going to try and figure out first what our forehead's going to look like. So I'm mainly just trying to mark out the shape of it. You don't need a perfect shape to fit into that spot, you just need to make sure that it'll cover a majority of that spot. A lot of the fur you can end up kind of just moving around to make sure everything is completely covered once it fits. So like that, that'll work perfect for the forehead. And now we need to figure out like inside of the ear. I really can't put that in because it's kind of curved, so I'm going to kind of like guess the shape, and then we'll cut it out, see if it fits, and then make adjustments. There we go. That'll cover that portion, and it should be the same for both sides. It might be slightly off. Yeah. Okay, I ended up making the bottom part of the face one piece. So this is just going to cover like that. It's a little bit off on this side, but that's not too bad. So we got that done. So we have three patterns. We got the bottom of the head, the ears, and the forehead. Now what we need to do is we need to draw them out. So because we're using black fur fabric, we're going to have to use a white pencil. That way we can trace it and actually see what we're doing. Because it'd be really hard to just use a pen or pencil for this. And while we're cutting these out, we need to make sure that the fur is going in a certain direction. So if you notice, when they make fur fabric, it all goes into one specific direction. At least most fur fabric. There are certain kinds that kind of flop all kinds of different directions, but I don't tend to like using those. So we know that the fur is going this way. So say for the forehead, we want it like that. So this is the front, and we'll want it to go this direction. And then for this, that goes like that, so you'll want this to go that direction. And the ears are like that, so you'll want it to go like that for both of them. Okay, so I got the fabric pieces all cut out, and we're going to glue them onto the face. Oh, and I forgot that you'll actually need a glue gun. Ignore how messy mine is. Okay, so what I normally do is I will take the fabric glue, and I will go around the edges with it, because that's where I mainly want the extra strength of the fabric glue to hold the fabric into place. So I'll go around the edges, and then I will take a little bit of hot glue and drop it in the middle, and that'll hold it into place while the other glue is drying, because hot glue dries a lot faster than Fabri-Tac. Then I just need to move all the fur out of the way, and push that into place on the face and make sure that all the glue is nice and flat. Just kind of squash it into place. So I'm going to do that to the ears. Now the ear pieces, I may just use the Fabri-Tac. So I'll probably do it a little differently. I'll probably do this, just putting the fabric glue in the ear. Mainly doing it this way because I think it's going to be a little tricky to hold on to the fur fabric piece and put it into the ear while it's covered in glue. And I don't want to get this all over my hands. So I'm just pushing that into place, making sure it's nice and flat and where I want it. And then we can do the same thing to this ear. So just like the forehead piece, we're just going to glue all the way around the edges. This kind of looks like a weird knockoff of Batman's symbol. We're going to take just a tiny bit of hot glue here and probably here. And then we're going to line it up. We're going to make sure that it's nice and centered, and we're just going to push it down. Make sure everything is nice and flat so when it dries, all the glue holds it into place. Okay, so that's the majority of the large pieces of the face. Now what we're going to do is all the little tiny pieces. So I'm going to let all of this dry for just a little bit, and then we're going to come back to that. Okay, so while our face is drying with the larger pieces of fur fabric, I'm going to work on making the little fur trimmings, or it's usually called flock. So I am going to get this trimmed down. So for this, I just need my hair trimmer, and I tend to use a 1/4 inch guard and a 1/8 inch guard. So I'm going to start with the larger guard first, and I'm going to remove as much hair as I can from the fur fabric piece. Okay. So I took out most of the large bits of the fur fabric. Now I'm going to switch over to my 1/8 guard. So with my 1/8 guard, I'm going to try and get this as flat as possible and remove as much as possible, because this is going to determine the length of the fur trimmings that I'm going to use. This other guard was mainly to just get the bulky stuff out of the way so I didn't have to do it all at once. It just made it a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to get this all trimmed. Oh, and one thing, when I'm shaving, you'll notice that I'm going this way or this way with it. The fur is going this way, and I find it's just a lot easier to go sideways against the hair grain than to go with it. It just shaves it faster. Also, my guard doesn't get stuck in the fur as much as if I was going this way or going against the grain completely. Okay, so it's a little hard to see because it's black fur. I may show you guys this on different color fur fabric, mainly because I realized black is probably not the right color to show off a tutorial with. But basically I have it completely flat now. It's nice and plush and even, other than the sides, but we're not going to mess with that. So now I'm going to get rid of all of this because I don't want it to get mixed up in the actual fur that I'm going to use. So I'm going to clean up my space. Okay, this is probably a better example showing you what you want your fur fabric to look like before you start cutting and getting your flock from it. So you'll notice everything is completely flat. Again, I'm not dealing with the edges over here. I'm just dealing with the main part of the fur fabric. So everything is all the same size and length. And now we're going to get the actual fur trimmings that we're going to use for the face. So for this, I remove my hair guard. Make sure to get all of that out of the way too. And we're going to shave what's left on the fur fabric and go all the way down to the backing. All of our little fur trimmings will be pretty much the exact same length. They're just, it's kind of like little fur dust. And that's what you're wanting when you're making a flock. Okay, there we go. That should be plenty. You honestly don't need a lot of this because we don't have much face to really cover. But I do always do extra just in case, so I don't have to go back to shaving more. It's just easier that way. Now, one thing you can do if you don't want to make your own fur trimmings, what you can do is you can actually buy flocking, but you can't really color match to the fur fabric that you're using. So I like using it this way because I already have the fur fabric and stuff, so I might as well use it. And that way my colors completely match. Okay, so for furring the rest of the face, we're just going to use our Fabri-Tac and our little bit of fur trimmings. And if you have a little pokey tool to move the fur around, use that. It doesn't really matter. I just like using this thing. I don't even know what it is. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the over the eyes portion. And basically I'm just going to take my Fabri-Tac and I'm going to just kind of cover that up with the glue. I'm going to go all the way around and make sure to cover everything that I want in glue in that spot that I'm working on. It makes it a lot easier to do this in sections, but you are welcome to just completely cover the face in glue if you want. But I just find it's easier, a little less messy, to just kind of do it piece by piece. And then we're just taking our fur trimmings and going over that surface. And I'm just kind of patting it down to try and really get it into the glue. Now while I'm doing this, the fur trimmings are thick enough to where the glue is not getting on my fingers. You don't really want to get the glue on your fingers. It's probably fine if you do, just make sure you don't get it on your eyes for sure, or in your eyes. And then I'm just going to use this to do a little bit more refining, because at this point you're probably sticking your fingers in the glue. So I'd rather use my tool at this point and just kind of move it around. One thing you can also do is just kind of blow on it and remove any excess fur that is not stuck. It just kind of gives you an idea of what is actually sticking to the face and what's not. And then you can always add more. Now I didn't do this on this face, but with some the fur that you glued in larger chunks around the face, you could actually take your hair trimmer again and trim it up a little bit, but I wanted his face to be really fluffy, so I didn't do that with this piece. You'll notice what I'm doing now is a larger portion of the face, and that's because there's just not really a natural stopping point, and I don't want to have a weird seam on the middle of the face. Because like doing here, there's a natural stop here and there, so you can kind of hide the seams that this causes. Because if you put glue down and then you fur it and stuff, and then you put glue down next to that, it could create kind of like a clumping spot. So you do have to be careful of that. One way you can avoid doing this is just let that portion dry, and then you can overlap it probably without any trouble. Might be a little bit trickier because some of the fur will probably come off a little bit. But if you're like me and you want to just get the whole face furred, I'd recommend breaking it up in sections that kind of make sense and kind of help hide the portions of where you started a spot and you stopped a spot. Okay, so our face is completely covered and we just need to let it dry. Now, once it's dried, if you want to make sure that everything that's on the face is actually stuck to the face, you can take like just a big paintbrush and you can kind of just lightly go over it and knock any of the fur that is not glued to the face off of it. This is a good way to find out if you actually have bald spots, and if you do, you can actually go over the face a second time. It may be a little bit messier doing that, so just be careful going over it because you might pull a lot of the fur off as well as put new fur on. So just if you're going to go over your fur a second time, just be careful and do it a lot lighter than when you did it the first time. Another thing you can do once it's completely dried and you have all the excess fur off is you can go over a bit and add a bit of a highlight, can add a little bit more painting to the fur as well. And if you guys are interested, this is roughly about how much fur I have left from furring the face. Honestly, this is enough to probably do another half face if you want. So if you're doing a lot of dolls at once, I would recommend just kind of doubling up or something, because you really don't need a lot, but if you're doing multiple faces, you'll probably need like a square like this big, because I started out with a square this big and I probably honestly could have done just that much and it would have been fine. So yeah, I'm going to let him dry and then I might add some highlights around his eyes. Nothing too detailed. Okay guys, and that's pretty much how I tend to fur my faces. You can do it in different ways. You can do it a little bit slower and just do tiny tufts of fur if you want it to be longer in places. But this was just a way that I found was a lot easier to do and just a little bit quicker. And it looks basically fine, I think. I really like how it looks. I may mess around with how I do it in the future because I constantly want to learn how to change things up and make them look better. But this is currently how I fur my faces. So I hope this was helpful. If you guys have any other questions, leave them down below. I'll be sure to try and answer them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!